Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to Blade Bias. Yeah, I know what I said. You don't have to remind me. I'm not going to buy one. I'm not interested. I like the Prisma Pro better. I bought a Sasori. I did it. I bought a Sasori. So I've had this thing since Blade Show, which has been about over a week at this point. But this is not going to be my I spent a week with video. This is not going to be the update video on the Sasori. I simply, in this video, I'm going to take you through my first 2 or 3 days of owning it and kind of what I've thought about it before I spend about another week trying to really figure out what I think about this thing to finally do the update video on. I know that's disappointing, but I literally need to wait another week because I have so much. If you watched the teaser at the end of the last video, I have so much stuff to cover, and that isn't even the half of it because I also have video ideas and stuff like the case video that I need to do. There's a lot of stuff coming out, but this is the most exciting thing. I bought one. I bought a Sasori. Straight up. I wasn't planning on it, but I did. They retail for $220. Wasn't prepared to pay that, but these are pre-production, which means that there was an issue, specifically with Op2, Machinewise told me, and it messed up the positioning of kind of the pivot area and the Zen pin area, which means that they had to do like custom blades. So they had to throw a discount on it because it also, these things didn't really match the fit and finish of what they would usually want to put out, but they needed to for cash flow, whatever, which is understandable. So they discounted it, $190, which still wasn't enough to tempt me because I knew with my luck, I would end up getting a Totori eventually and want to swap the blades because I spent that time with the Totori trainer and I really liked it. I think the Totori is fantastic. The Sasori is where my confusion really begins. But it's because I didn't want to spend $190 and do something that I couldn't swap the blade on in the future. And then I went to their booth the very end of the second day, and they had one left, and I was like, I really want one of these things to figure out how I feel about it. At this point, I was still a little confused how I felt about it. Didn't really figure it out by flipping to Suko's because I also had the Totori, and it was... So I asked them how much, and they said $170 because this specific one was a blemish model. And I was like, at that price, I really can't say no. That is less than a Prisma Pro was. Really can't say no to that. So I bought it, and I've been flipping it almost nonstop for the past week. But like I said, I'm going to take you through my initial thoughts on this thing. Because before I even tried it, Dalen, I believe it was the Pit Day 0, maybe? But before I tried it, I was talking to Dalen, and he said, you know, man, I really do think we've improved the fit and finish from the Prisma Pro. I think the feel in the hand is way better than the Prisma Pro, and it makes the Prisma Pro feel like not great. And I was like, no way, I don't believe you. I straight up told him, I was like, I don't know if I believe you, man, because the Prisma Pro feels great in the hands. It's not like the most impressive thing I've ever felt in my hand. It's not like a Seraph, but for $180, it feels pretty damn good. And then I got to the show the next day, and I picked up a Sasori, and I understood what he meant, because this thing really does just have a feel in the hand that is unmatched by anything else in Machinewise's lineup, besides the Seraph. Again, I'm talking about for the $200 price point. I'm not talking about in all of Balisong's, because obviously the Seraph, the feel in the hand of the Seraph is going to smack the shit out of the Totori. This thing for $220, I would say, meets or surpasses the Kraken trainer in terms of feel in the hand. They genuinely nailed it. And honestly, comparing these two right now, I do think the Sasori just feels a little bit more high quality in the hand with the machining and just the way that the handles feel. It feels great. It really, really does. I really like how it feels. I can't stop dropping it. So that was like my number one first impression. They improved the fit and finish, which Machinewise's fit and finish has always been great, so now it's even better. Cool. And then I flipped it. And by damn, does this thing match my preferences more than the Prisma Pro does? But I don't know if it actually does. So my first impression was, hot diggity dog, this thing feels incredible to fan and choker fan, which is kind of like 80% of what goes into me saying that a balisong feels good or not, or like matches my preference. If it fans and choker fans well, honestly, you're like more than halfway there. Because the Prisma Pro has a little more handle bias than I'm really used to, which makes fans and choker fans, while feeling good, not feel as good as something like my Seraph, although it does still fan and choker fan ridiculously well. This thing fans a little better. Somehow, Machinewise was able to shorten the length of their products, but still make them flip like they're long and weird. And considering how like actually almost scared I was for the tip weight on this thing, because it looks like it has none. It has more than enough tip weight. I don't know how they did it. When the Vulp looks like this and doesn't really have like the most tip weight in the world, and then they come out with this, which fans better than the Vulp because it has good tip weight, it's crazy. Because the Prisma is the same thing. Like, where's the tip weight? But like, it has the tip weight. I don't know. If you're new here, tip weight in balisongs really helps with fanning, because the further out that the weight is from the middle of the balisong, when you fan it, that tip weight is going to pull the blade down. If you have a balisong that doesn't have a lot of tip weight, let's say the ProTech collab that Squid had, that tip is not going to be pulled down, and it's going to fan like this, like a V. So the more tip weight you have, the more flat that your fan is going to be. That's why I sometimes say something has a flat fan, because it has enough tip weight. So this thing has a flat fan. Now, I do have the heavier weights installed in this right now. The weight system here is really something special. These are titanium spacers that normally would go in the Tottori sandwich model, but in the Sasori, which is an aluminum channel model, they still fit in as weight. So you can have these, and you can also have, pardon this is my old Seraph hardware, you can also have these lighter pocketed weights, which reduce the handle bias by a little bit. I wouldn't say it's the craziest difference in the world. Like, I definitely think the Seraph is getting crazier changes between weights than this thing is, but it's still enough to notice a change for me. So yeah, it fanned amazing on the lighter weights, and it just felt really, really good. One of the things that I was really worried about with the Sasori was the length. Besides the tip weight was the length, because when they posted a picture, it looked like it was so much shorter than the Prisma Pro. This shit is not even that much shorter. It's actually kind of crazy. If we really line up the bottom of these handles, we're talking like not even half an inch. This thing is as big as a Vault Pro. It did not look as big as a Vault Pro in the pictures that they posted, and that's why I was so scared. You got some people now saying, like, I don't know why people were freaking out so much about this. The pictures that they posted really did make it look like it was going to be a Squiddy AL size instead of a Kraken size or something like that. Because the Squiddy AL is a small little dude, and this thing is still longer than a Squiddy AL, but it didn't look like it in the pictures. So, first impressions were really good. They have this more standard size balisong that still flips like Machinewise, still flips like it's kind of long, which is already impressive. Has, in my opinion, a better balance to my preferences, and just feels great in the hand. That's a winner. So I bought one. And then I really started playing with it. Let a few other people try it, specifically Pyro flipped it, and he said, I think it needs a little more ass weight, a little more end weight, as I would call it. And I was like, what? No, because I had been flipping it standing up, much like I'm doing now, and thought it was fantastic. It fanned well, it choker fanned well, it chaplined well, whatever. Anything that you wanted to do, the Sasori did. Until the next day, I sat down to help Ty script out a portion of his video. And I was flipping it on the ground where I didn't have much room with my arm to do anything. And I was dropping this thing left and right. The lack of end weight on the Sasori did not become apparent to me until I flipped a little slower and I had less room to really throw about the weight of the balisong. Because when you're standing up, I have all this room to do 0Gs, and I can whip the thing around, and I can really use its momentum to its advantage. But when I'm sitting down, I don't have that much space. I'm not able to crank my arm. You have to move a little more conservatively. And that's really when it started faltering. I would go into a chaplain, it would spin out, or I would throw a rollover and it would fly away, or this, that, and the third. So that's kind of where I started going, I like the Prisma Pro a little better, because one thing that I specifically love about the Prisma Pro is that it's just as smooth to flip when you're flipping it slow as it is to flip when you're flipping it fast. It excels at both really, really well. The Sasori with the lightweights doesn't. It does feel like it wants to fly a little bit. Chaplains aren't as sticky as I would like when you start flipping it slowly. Now the heavyweights do fix this quite a bit. You can see that I'm flipping this thing because I have the heavyweights in right now. I'm flipping this thing rather slowly, and it's working. It's working much better than it was without the lightweights. But the problem is, I think that the handle weight it's funky. It's weird. I think what really ends up sticking out is the fact that these weights were made specifically for a titanium design rather than an aluminum one. Because the distribution with the heavier weights, while it is good, and it does increase the handle bias a little bit, there are still moments where I flip it and I'm like, I really would like to go back to the lightweights, because it just feels like there's something, like kind of right there, there's something off about it that I can't really put my finger on. But Brandon, actually, I talked to, felt that too, because he said that he liked the lightweights better. So this is kind of the reason that I'm going to wait a little bit longer to do my updated video on the Sasori, because I need to go back to the lightweights and figure out what really I like better, which is going to be kind of a nightmare because getting the pivots out in the pre-production model is kind of a crazy struggle. I told Machinewise I wasn't going to take off too many points in my head for that because it is a pre-production unit. They're very clear about that. But if you also have a pre-production Sasori and you can't get the weights out, if you can't get these pivots out because they're stuck in there, Machinewise told me that if you unscrew this screw a little bit, I've unscrewed mine about halfway, and then you hammer it against the table, that should be enough to push it out. My bite side, I had to do that quite a bit in order to get it out. My safe side was perfectly fine. So it seems like with the pre-productions, your mileage will vary, but that's the reason it's a pre-production and they gave you a discount. I excuse the Vault Pro being full price and having the same issue with these pivots at the end. So I'm more than willing to excuse a $30 discount for something that isn't going to affect my experience 95% of the time. You know, like most people just set it and forget it with weight systems, so I don't really think it's a huge deal. So overall, I know this is a crazy ramble video. I've been doing these a lot lately, and I'm so sorry. The Sasori really impressed me the first time, and then since it impressed me, it's been wobbling back and forth between I like the Prisma Pro better and I like the Sasori better. Ultimately, even if I decide that I don't like the Sasori better, the Sasori is still keeping Machinewise's legacy alive. It feels like a longer, fun balisong that they made. Like, it feels like it could come straight off the Marin platform, you know? It doesn't feel shorter. It doesn't feel like they're standardizing their lineup. Same thing with the Totori. It keeps that fun legacy of Machinewise alive, and that is truly what I was worried about. So ultimately, no matter if I end up liking the Prisma Pro better, I am happy with how the Sasori and the Totori came out because it is keeping that fun flipping experience that I love Machinewise for alive. And I think that is amazing. And they're doing it with some genuinely interesting innovations with this spacer system that works on both the sandwich and the channel model. So I'm going to need to spend quite a bit more time with the Sasori trying to figure out what my thoughts are. With the heavy weights in, like I said, everything still flips amazing. But sometimes I find myself wanting maybe even a little bit more ass weight when I'm trying to do this trick specifically, where I go double around my thumb and then I pass it. Gosh. And then I pass it over to my middle finger to go around my middle finger like that. I find myself wishing it had a little more handle weight, just because the more handle weight you have, the more smooth that motion becomes. Something like the Prisma Pro was pretty phenomenal at doing that for me. It's kind of how I learned it in the first place. That wasn't very smooth, but you get my point. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this smooth on camera. Yeah, I'm not. But, okay, whatever. Yeah, whatever. It doesn't help my point, but sometimes I find myself flipping it, wishing it had a little bit more end weight. Sometimes I wish I could go back to the light weights. I don't think it's perfect, but it fans phenomenally. It has great handle ergonomics for fanning, and it feels really good in the hand. It's got enough grip. They went with, instead of like a more satin finish like the Prisma was, it feels like a more bead blasted kind of thing, maybe Zur blasted or something. I'm not exactly sure what the finishing on this is. It feels a little grippier, and maybe goes a little way into making me feel that it feels more premium in the hand. So that's good. And the jimping, I would say, is marginal at best. I personally prefer the Prisma Pro jimping by a long shot because it just grips into your fingers a lot more. This is kind of like Kraken, where it's a bit too smooth to really like be super effective, but it's good enough, I guess. So, Sasori feels good in the hand. Fans and choker fans amazingly. Chaplains, while ultimately performing, can be questionable sometimes. With the heavyweights in, I think they're more than fine. And overall, it's a really, really solid flipper. For $220, I think it's more than capable of going up against a Kraken trainer. They are sort of pricing themselves a little bit out of competition because the Prisma Pro was just destroying the sub $200 market. They're not in that market anymore, but I think they will end up destroying the $220 market, assuming people are willing to pay that, which for the quality of what you're getting, I think is more than a fair price. Yes, it's more expensive, but a $40 increase for some of the machining upgrades that we get, I'm perfectly fine with that. So I'm happy with the Sasori. You guys, Machinewise, you guys got me to spend money when I said I wasn't going to. And not only that, you actually got me ready to apologize to you for making so many comments about how nervous I was about the future of your company. I'll do a more official video in the future with my opinions on the camaroEE platform, I guess, because the Totori Sasori. I will do a more official video with my thoughts on the camaroEE platform in the future, but for now, suffice it to say, you proved me wrong. So, sorry for making another hugely rambly video, but I have a lot to say about this thing. I would expect the follow-up video on this thing to be similarly rambly. But yeah, thank you all for watching. I can't believe I own one of these, and I'm going to go keep flipping it. I'll see you in the next one. Later.